Back to the book. I walked over to the bodies. Yoder's eyes were partially shut, and I leaned down to push them close. Not that it did any good, but for some reason, I thought it was better that way. I stood there with one hand on my aching hip, smoking and thinking. Yoder's face was all muddy from the numerous times he'd been dropped in the mud, and there was a trickle of blood at the base of his throat. This is the way it will always end, I thought. Men being killed in the jungle, other men dragging their bodies out, putting them on choppers, and the rest of us going back to the fighting. When they left on the chopper, it was as if they had never been. Man's beginning and man's end would always be attended by only a few. Those that bore him at birth and those that bore him at death. The only important thing was what he did in between. Good or bad or indifferent, he would touch those around him in some way and then be gone. I wondered if a salute would be in order, not necessarily in the military sense, but a salute from one who had known him and who would never forget him. I decided it was, and I raised my hand to my forehead in a farewell. Now the bird's coming in to pick him up as after he gives that final salute to Yoder. Smoke was popped, and the large chopper swung in towards us for his landing. The doors were pushed back, and I saw the door gunner on the side facing me, looking around, anxiously searching for the omnipresent enemy. Good man, I thought, not trusting a goddamn thing, even with an American infantry company surrounding the LZ. And I just love that. He's noticing that this door gunner's coming in, the helo's coming in to pick him up, and instead of this guy cutting corners and be like, oh, there's an infantry trumping again, there's no rounds being fired, I'm just going to relax. No, this guy's in the game, opens the door, doesn't, what does he say? He says, not trusting a goddamn thing, even with an American infantry company on the LZ. Many thoughts were crisscrossing my mind. Above everything else ran the thought that I could not abandon my men. I felt the shame that I had asked Captain Sells to pull me out of the field earlier when I was still shaken. What would the men think if they found out I was doing such a thing? Worse, what would I think of myself?